Happy Easter, everyone! And today we're gonna have a little look about Easter and what Alyssa and me have been reading in the Bible and what our thoughts were for the Bible, and I've been praying and thinking about it a little bit, and it's just something what comes from my heart, what moved me this Lent season over to Easter, and I want to share it with you. Let's begin. Have you ever heard the expression, everyone has their cross to bear? Well, to no surprise, that phrase comes from the Bible, and we can find it there. But what does it really mean? I mean, we say that when we have some trouble in our lives, or we have, referred to things which happened in the past and we still carry with us around. But in the Bible, we actually find that phrase where Jesus says, you should take up your cross and follow me. And we read that in one of the biographies of Jesus. It's written from Matthew, one of his closest followers. He was a disciple, he was an apostle from Jesus, so he was very involved when Jesus was in life, but also after he was commissioned directly from Jesus to talk about Jesus' life and what he has done. And that will become more important. We will later on meet another one of those who later in Jesus' life, or basically after Jesus has risen, also got the commission from Jesus directly to be an apostle. That means to go out in the world and proclaim the good news with the authority from Jesus. But anyway, that's so much. If you have a Bible, have a look with me in Matthew. That's in the New Testament. You can find that where the New Testament begins if you want to look it up. And there in chapter 16, verse 24 and the following. And there it is written, Jesus says to his disciples, his close followers, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and fortifies his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul?" I guess you're wondering, well, what does it have to do with Easter? And what does this actually mean? Bear your cross, take up your cross. And that's the two questions we're gonna explore. And we get there in just a bit. What Jesus here says is a tough one for everyone to hear. Deny yourself, pick up your cross. Sounds hard. Denying what I want and pick up my cross and follow Jesus. Well, Jesus actually literally picked up a cross and got nailed to it. That's why we celebrate Easter. Why did he die? Why did he let himself get murdered? Well, because he took the blame for our messy lives. What blame? Well, the blame from God. God created us to live a life He has planned for us. But we and all humans rebelled against God and His plan for this world, against His perfect plan for us. God wanted a perfect life for us, for all people. But we want to be God ourselves in our lives and want to decide what's right in our lives. So God gets ignored. And God cannot just put it aside and say, oh wow, like you've done some mistakes. No, God is also a just God. And that's really important, because we want a fair God who treats everyone the same, to the same standard. But that also means that we get treated to God's standard the same as someone we think is clearly evil. And we have all examples in our minds. So that means we also need forgiveness. And Jesus made that way for forgiveness because he was God himself. And on Easter Friday, when we say it's Easter Friday, he got near to the cross and bore the punishment. That's a punishment from God. Our punishment. We should have been there. Willingly he stayed where we should have been. That's why Easter is not just a tragic event of someone innocent getting persecuted, unfairly treated and murdered on the cross 2000 years ago, but a celebration. It's a celebration of new life, forgiveness of sin, and a new start with God in your life. And if we accept that Jesus died for us, then we are free. Free from that verdict from God over us. But then what does it entail? Obviously, what does it mean then to follow Jesus? Because Jesus, of course, we are not Jesus. But what does it entail for us? What does it mean to follow Jesus? Because even when we are martyred for following Jesus, we don't achieve the same thing as Jesus did at the cross. We are not Jesus. So what does it mean for us to pick up the cross? And that's for us as Christian, especially a reminder. But also, if you never heard of it, or you're just thinking about Jesus, Easter and all of that, then let us read a bit more from a letter to some of the first Christians who just been trying to figure out exactly that. What does it mean to follow Jesus? And they had some serious problems with it. In the first letter to the Corinthians, a very rich city, cultural, important, economically on the top in the Roman Empire, very important people. There, one of the apostles, Paul, another one who met Jesus and got told he needs to go out into this world to tell about Jesus, wrote to them to help them to grasp where they're running still in their own ways, as if they would have never met the saving grace, the saving power of Jesus. And there we read, if you have the Bible still open, go a bit further back in the first letter to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 3, chapter 3, verses 8 to 13. We're just gonna read it. And there Paul writes to those Corinthians, so he speaks directly to them. Already you have all you want. Already you have become rich. You have begun to reign, and that without us. How I wish that you really had begun to reign, so that we also might reign with you. For it seems to me that God has put the apostles, like Paul and Matthew we met, on display at the end of the processions, like those condemned to die in the arena. We have been made a spectacle to the whole universe, to angels as well as human beings. We are fools for Christ, but you are so wise in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. You are honored, we are dishonored. To this very hour we are go hungry and thirsty. We are enraged. We are brutally treated. We are homeless. We work hard with our own hands, and when we are cursed, we bless. When we are persecuted, we endure it. When we are slandered, we answer kindly. We have become the scum of the earth, the garbage of this world, right up to this moment. And who knows the letter from Paul to this young church in Corinth knows here's a bit of ironic statements in here. This ironic undertone. You have already everything, are you? Status. They are rich. Have everything they need and lots of power. But that power is only temporarily and actually frankly quite weak anyway, because if you're someone from Greek, where Corinth was at the time, you've been in a conquered nation from Rome. But Jesus says he will come back, and then he will reign this world visibly, and all who follow him will reign with him. But not yet. Not is yet the time. Because he gives us still the chance for everyone who is now alive to investigate Jesus' claim and what he has done on the cross. And if we look away from Europe and North America, for most Christians in this world, for believing Christians, it looks more like what Paul experienced in verse 9. For it seems to me that God has put us apostles as display in the end of the procession, like those condemned to die in the arena. We have been made a spectacle to the whole universe, to angels as well as human beings. The apostles are long dead, but as Christians we follow in their footsteps. We follow the teaching and lives they lived as they've been instructed from Jesus himself to tell us about it. So authentic Christianity looks a lot like that, and we see that frankly around the world. In the end of the procession, there were the captured enemies from Rome would walk and then would be persecuted, most famously of course in the Colosseum, but in many arenas in the Roman Empire as well. And the following verses show how the apostles live authentically. They denied themselves and followed Jesus. They picked up their cross daily. And even if we are not directly persecuted and hunted down, there are some lessons for us too. And not just for those people are Christians who call themselves Christian, but for everyone. Verse 12, they work really hard, they encounter bad people, and they bless. That means they get badly treated and respond with good. To the people who hurt them, they endure hardship. Or verse 13, they're kind when they get mocked, even when it feels like garbage. That's tough. Do you manage to respond kindly to the people who talk badly about you behind your back? You know it in the office, in school. We encounter that everywhere. And we get told here that it's very likely that in some form or another, if we follow Jesus, we have to give up a lot in our lives. We will encounter hardship because we are Christians. But why do they do it? Why did Paul do it? Paul was of high society. He was a Roman citizen even. Educated on the highest level in Jerusalem. Being in the ruling class, a cultural authority. Like those in Corinth, in a different context of course. And now he says, I gave that all up. And in verse 16, if you just look a little bit below, he says, therefore I urge you to imitate me. And so it's not just, well, I gave it up and told you and that's a big sacrifice. No. Do the same. Do the same. You who believe in Jesus, do the same. And why should we pick up the cross? That doesn't sound great, does it? Well, it is great because of Easter. Easter is the reason because Christians don't do it out of guilt, but out of thankfulness, what they have experienced. And yes, I talk about experience, not just reading facts or something. You can that experience. That's an experience when you meet Jesus, when your heart gets open for the truth. Jesus died to give us life to the full, a life we are meant to live because it's a life with God. And that already changes our life slowly before we die, but makes our life so much better. Easier to live because it explains the world and our struggles in it. And it puts us everything in the right perspective. It doesn't make evil good. It might not even make us totally understand why so many things happen to us in this world. But we have someone who walks with us. We are not alone. And that's so much worth. And it is not easy in this world. This world is in rebellion. We talked about that in the beginning. A rebellion against God. And quite frankly, rebellion or aggression against each other as well. And therefore, against you if you follow Jesus. And when you think about it. But God gives us life after death as well. And everyone has death. Everyone dies. It's a reality we cannot ignore. And then there's two ways. After death, you bear the punishment which Jesus could have taken for you. Or you accept that Jesus already took that punishment for you. And you have eternal life in heaven. Heaven, and that's a place without hurt, without pain, no struggle anymore. And that is something, isn't it? And that is what makes Christians go out and tell others about it. It's worth the ridicule, the shaming and the hardship. Because the experience is true freedom from guilt they have before God. And they experience it daily as they struggle through life. Life is not easy. But so far for us as a Christian and for us as a reminder, especially for me, because it's easy to forget as well. But if you not follow Jesus and you made it so far into the video, that means you're not a Christian, but you're still interested in it maybe. Or maybe you just know me or Alyssa and you thought you give it a shot. I hope you can take from that Jesus died for you 2,000 years ago. That's why we celebrate Easter. and there's a gift of forgiveness for the mess in our lives, based on the deeds of Jesus, not our achievement. That's a historic event, and people like Matthew, who've been there, thought it's worth proclaiming and even dying for it. Well, maybe you should investigate it more. It's good news. When our hope is rested in something else than ourselves, and Jesus provides this hope. A hope which is already fulfilled. It's certain because Jesus already done it. We're lucky in history we came after Jesus. We can look back. Others needed to look forward to that point, which is much harder. Maybe you feel guilty for something in your life and it's not possible for some reason to ask for forgiveness. Or maybe you can't forgive yourself for something as well. Or maybe you build your whole life on things you have established, you have accomplished, you own, you make, and you reached. Maybe the pandemic took that away, or you realized that those are very fragile. Well, it's good news for you too. It's good news for all of us. I wish you a wonderful Easter, and maybe spend some time reflecting on Jesus. Think about what those Christians claim. If you're a Christian, think about what you actually believe. We have Easter for a reason, and that's because Jesus died on the cross and rose again. Christians who struggle daily to respond kindly to hardship have the strength to do so, and if they fail, to come also back to God and to ask for forgiveness. I wish you happy Easter.